Dear students, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am Manjur Ahmad Ganai, lecturer History Boys Higher Secondary School Trahal. Today our topic for 12th class students of our institution is what is Mahabharata. Discuss whether Mahabharata could have been the book of a single author. Dear students, this question has two parts. One part is what is Mahabharata, and the second part is about the authorship of Mahabharata as to who has written Mahabharata. Let's answer the question now. Mahabharata is basically an epic, means a long and very interesting story of war between cousin brothers, namely Pandavas and Kauravas, over the throne of Hastinapur in ancient India. In this war, it were ultimately Pandavas who came out victorious and got the throne of Hastinapur. And it is believed initially the number of verses of Mahabharata were 8,800 verses were initially there, and then it was called a Jaya. Later on, the number of verses increased to 24,000, and then it was called a Bharata. Finally, the number of verses reached to 1 lakh, and then it came to be known as Mahabharata. So initially there are only 8,800 verses. It was called a Jaya. Then there were the number of verses reached to 24,000. Then it was called Bharata, and ultimately the number of verses reached to 1 lakh verses, and then it came to be known as Mahabharata. Dear students, about the authorship of as to who has written Mahabharata, it is a question of debate among historians whether it was written by a single author or by many authors. Many historians believe that it was composed by Ved Vyas, and he had dictated this book to Lord Ganesh, who wrote it down. But many historians do not agree with this view. According to them, Mahabharata was a work of several authors. Why? Number one, it is believed that Mahabharata was written over 1000 years between 500 BC to 500 AD. These historians believe that it is impossible that any one author would have composed it over such a long period. These historians believe that it was not possible for an author to remain live for 1000 years and compose the whole book for these 1000 years. So, therefore, it was not possible that any one author could have written this book. Number one. Number two, probably it is thought that the original story of Mahabharata were the poems sung by charioteer bards. Who were charioteer bards? Charioteer bards were basically the people who drove chariots, means two-wheeled vehicles driven by these oxes, and bards means poetess, means these the people who drove these, who used to draw these these chariots were poetess, and these charioteer bards were known as sutas. What the charioteer bards did, it is believed that these charioteer bards in their chariots used to take kshatriyas to battlefields, and when kshatriyas used to fight in battlefields with valor and courage, with bravery, these charioteer bards used to compose poems, write poems in the honor, in the celebration of victory of kshatriyas. And these poems sung by charioteer bards about the bravery of kshatriyas in the battlefields became the initial part of Mahabharata. So here we can say this could not have been the work of a single author, as it is believed that the earliest people who sung the poems of Mahabharata were believed to be character bards, known as sutas. Number 2, it is also believed that the poems sung by character bards. In number 3, this point is number 2 we have already discussed. Number 3 is now, it is believed that the poems which were sung by character bards in the praise of, in the victory of Kshatriyas were sung orally from generation to generation without writing. So these were not written by anyone for a long time. Here as well, the single authorship of the Mahabharata also feels in a doubt. Single person authorship of Mahabharata seems to be in a doubt. Number 3, it is believed that it was only in 5th century BC that Brahmanas and priestess took over the story and started writing it down. So, telling that it was written by a single author also here seems not to be true, and it was Brahmanas and priestess who took over the writing of this Mahabharata in 5th century BC. Number 5, it is believed that in 5th century BC, two small tribes known as Kurus and Panchalas, around which the whole story of Mahabharata revolves, began to emerge as kingdoms. And the rulers of these kingdoms thought it necessary to record their history and preserve it. And it is believed that the history which they recorded of their kingdoms, Kurus and Panchalas, became the important part of Mahabharata, and which added, these parts were added, the story composed by or written by these Kurus and by the kings of Kurus and Panchalas added to the story which were already composed by character bards. Number 4, and we can say 6. It is believed that between 200 BC to 200 AD, a new phase started in the writing of Mahabharata. How? During this period, the worship of Vishnu was gaining ground, and Lord Krishna, who is one of the important heroes or characters of Mahabharata, was identified as Lord Vishnu. It was Lord Krishna who gave advice to Arjun to fight against his cousin brothers, and the advice which Lord Krishna gave to Arjun in 700 verses assumed the shape of a separate book known as Bhagavad Gita. So we can understand that from all these pointers, it is believed that Mahabharata could not have been the work of a single author as put forward by several historians. Thank